What's up YouTube? This is the Osmo Pocket. It's a favorite among filmmakers all over the world. It's got over 1/2.3-inch sensor. It's actually really powerful and gives you pretty good cinematic results at an affordable price. This is the Fimi Palm. It's a knockoff and a competitor to the Osmo Pocket. It hasn't got the biggest sensor in the world, but it's got a 14mm lens, 128-degree field of view. This thing's not too bad. For the price, it's cheaper than the Osmo Pocket. This is the Osmo Action, cheaper than the Osmo Pocket, probably around similar price to the Fimi Palm, but it's got all the features and the same sensor as the Osmo Pocket, as well as built-in Rocksteady. Rocksteady works really well if you're doing bike riding, maybe riding a motorcycle. This is the camera you need to get. Last but not least, we have the Sony FDR X3000, one of the most underrated cameras you'd probably ever see. It's actually got a 1/2.5-inch sensor, so bigger than the Fimi Palm, but not as big as the other two. This thing's got optical image stabilization, so it's worth looking at. So we're going to test these cameras out today using roughly 5 or 6 tests. If you win a particular test, you get 1 point. If you come second, you get 0.5, half a point. And if you come third, you get 0.25, quarter of a point. If you come last in that particular test, you get 0. So let's get started. So here we go with a Fimi Palm, 128-degree field of view. Let's check the video quality. The colors look nice and it is a little bit less sharp than the Osmo Pocket, which we'll switch to. And you can see the colors look a little bit more natural and it is the sharper image. If we compare these two, they are quite similar, but the field of view on the Fimi Palm is a lot wider. Let's move on to the Sony FDR X3000, which as you can see is a very sharp image. It's not as stable using that optical image stabilization. This is the Osmo Action with Rocksteady enabled, so it crops slightly into your frame. And you'll see if we switch to the Osmo Pocket, they kind of look different. Even though they have the same sensor, I think the Osmo Pocket is better. The Fimi Palm still looks pretty good, nice and wide, but not quite as good as the Osmo Pocket. So all these cameras, including the Osmo Action, do a pretty good job, but I think overall the Osmo Pocket is the winner in this particular category. All the other cameras will share second place and get half a point. Now let's test the internal sound on all these cameras. This is just the sound coming into the internal speakers. So this is the sound you get natively out of the Fimi Palm. How does it compare to the Osmo Pocket? Natively out of the Osmo Action, no external microphone adapter. I don't actually own the external microphone adapter, but this is the sound you get just out of the device. So this is the sound you'd get out of the Sony FDR X3000 inbuilt stereo microphones. How is it? It should pick up quite a lot more of the background noise. There's a siren wailing in the background. So setting up an external microphone adapter on the Osmo Pocket is as simple as buying this little external microphone adapter, which plugs into the bottom of your USB-C port, like so. This little external horseshoe adapter, which is really useful, it actually plugs into that little port in the front of the Osmo Pocket. Then you've got a GoPro mount on the front, so you can mount it to something like a selfie stick. Then you would get your external microphone. This is the transmitter. The receiver is mounted to yourself. You'd obviously plug that in, hold that button in for 3 seconds. Then you'd see the Rode Wireless Go, and then all you need to do is plug that into the bottom of the port. Power on your Osmo Pocket. Let's turn on this little receiver, which is the Rode Wireless Go, and this is the actual transmitter, and that is plugged into my Rode Lavalier GO, which you can just hook onto the top of your shirt, and that gives you pretty good sound from really far away. If you click on the top left of the screen, you'll see something that says volume on the bottom right. I've set to 18 decibels. That's the setting I like. Face track is on, and if you move back, you technically have your own cameraman and you have good sound. That's pretty cool. Cinematic type footage with the Osmo Pocket. Mounting an external mic to the Fimi Palm requires this little external base that they actually sell. This is the official one. It's from Fimi Palm. It's kind of expensive. It's like $30, I think. Those little 2 arrows will line up. You need to power on your Fimi Palm first to get this to work, and then afterwards you need to actually plug in your device and you will see a message on the screen. You need to see the mic connected message. This is testing an external microphone on the Fimi Palm. It's a little bit dodgy on the tripod. If it falls off, it's done, but it's working. Testing 1 2 3. How is the sound using an external microphone on the Fimi Palm? The Rode Wireless Go, the Rode Lavalier GO, the Fimi Palm external base, and the Fimi Palm. This is like a $400 system, I reckon, after all the bought accessories. getting rid of a lot of the background noise. There's a siren in the background. Apparently I live in the most dangerous part of the world with all those sirens. So I do not actually own the external adapter for the Osmo Action. I'm not even sure if you can do an external microphone. Let me know in the comments if you know about it. I think you can. It's a pity that the Osmo Pocket's adapter does not work with the Osmo Action. That's just criminal. Anyway. Now, using the Sony FDR X3000 with an external microphone, there is quite a lot of gain that's been added to this camera, so it kind of blows out the sound quite a lot, but let's test it out so you know what it sounds like. You just plug it directly into the Sony FDR X3000. So this is the sound on the Sony FDR X3000 with an external microphone plugged in. Is the sound good? I'm roughly 5 feet away from the camera. 10 feet away from the camera. Is it still picking up my voice? Testing. 1, 2, 3. So the Osmo Pocket wins this one again, and the Sony X3000 and the Osmo Action had pretty good sound. The Sony also has internal stereo microphones and a built-in microphone jack. As for the internal microphone on the Fimi Palm, it does not have a nice humming noise, hence 0 points. Now we do a low light test, and this is the Sigma 16mm f1.4. It's the benchmark. That's what we'd like to see. It is very low noise, and you can see in low light it still looks pretty sharp. So let's check out the Fimi Palm first. Not great in low light. It's got a smaller sensor, 1/2.6 inch sensor on the Fimi Palm, so it doesn't do that well. The Osmo Pocket looks a little bit better. As you can see, it's handling the low light situation a little bit better with that bigger sensor. And let's switch to the Sony FDR X3000, which probably looks a little bit better than the Osmo Pocket even, or close to it. But we'll look at the Osmo Action, which doesn't appear to handle the low light as well as the Osmo Pocket, which is kind of weird considering they have the same sensor. So I must say the Sony X3000 looked pretty good, just like the Osmo Pocket, so they get first place, they shared. Second place to the Osmo Action, which didn't do too bad, and the Fimi Palm gets last place because of its smaller sized sensor. As for photos, I think the HDR and the dynamic range in the Fimi Palms look best. The Osmo Pocket sometimes washes the photo out, the exposure is not 100% correct always, and you'll see the Fimi Palm seems to get the sky correct. All the rest of the cameras look pretty similar, so I think this one we have to give it to the Fimi Palm first place. As for the Osmo Pocket, we'll give it a close second place because it's quite a sharp image. The Sony and the Osmo Action looked pretty good, so we'll give them 0.25, a quarter of a point in third place. Let's look at the menu systems on both the Osmo Pocket and the Fimi Palm, which appear to be quite similar. Both have slightly different features throughout their menu system. However, the Fimi Palm menu requires more swiping back and forward, and it's not as polished. The Osmo Action has a really nice interface, and you can see it's got really nice icons on the screen. You've got your HDR, your slow motion, and you can save custom recording settings. If you swipe from the bottom up, you'll see all your resolutions and your frames per second, which in 4K you can see goes all the way up to 60 FPS, just like the Osmo Pocket. If you swipe from the right towards the middle, you will see you can change manual and automatic shooting modes. Clicking the little camera icon allows you to set between normal and de-cine-like, and you can de-warp the fish eye that you would see using that little button on and off. Not a bad menu system, and probably one of the best. Overall, the Sony FDR X3000 has a pretty horrible menu system, and it's a little LCD screen, and you need to push buttons to move things around. However, all the features are there, and you can change to 4K, for example, by pressing the record button on the top and pressing record to select. You also do have all your other options available in the menu. It's just a lot more tedious to actually choose things like your color profiles and all kinds of things like wind reduction. I think we need to award 1 point to both the Osmo Pocket and the Osmo Action, perhaps giving the third place to the Fimi Palm. And even though I don't believe the Sony even deserves a point, we will give it a slight point because most of the menu interface does work and all the options are there. As for remote control, we need to look at the DJI Mimo app, which is available on the Osmo Pocket, which allows you to do some pretty cool stuff like set your frame rates, very similar to their menu interface, but you can see you've got anti-flicker, wind noise reduction, overexposure alerts, histograms. You can also pan through all the different options on your video on the right hand side like hyperlapse and time-lapse. Time-lapse also allows you to set multiple paths on the screen, which is really useful. This is good because on the device itself, I believe you can only do 2 points at a time. The Fimi Palm has a very similar knockoff menu to the Osmo Pocket. You can set your frame rates, your picture quality, your color management settings. You can also choose your grid on and off. At the top of the screen in photo mode, you can choose between HDR on and off. On the left hand side you can set your gimbal settings, including your follow speed, your joystick speed, and other options like resetting your gimbal. The Osmo Action uses the same DJI Mimo app. It doesn't have all the features of the Osmo Pocket, and that's purely because it's not a gimbal, but you can do time-lapse and hyperlapse and set your frame rates. So that's recording now on the Sony FDR X3000. The Sony X3000 has the Image and Edge mobile app, which as you can see froze on me. So remote control doesn't work quite as well on the Sony X3000. However, we have a new winner of the small pocket camera, the Osmo Pocket, with the Osmo Action in second place, the Fimi Palm in third, and the Sony unfortunately coming last. So there you have it, 4 cameras that are pretty much pocket sized. These two probably more likely to be used if you're doing a lot of sports and running activities. They're really indestructible, both these cameras, to a point. The Osmo Pocket and the Fimi Palm probably more of a filmmaker's tool, especially the Osmo Pocket. It does come out on top when it comes to filmmaking. And there you have it, the Osmo Pocket still on top in 2020. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you got anything out of it, please hit that subscribe button and see you again next time.